Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are in a slightly different location. We are down in my living room because all of my filming equipment was down here, and rather than truck it all upstairs, it just made more sense for me to film down here today. So I apologize if the lighting isn't quite as nice down here and if the audio seems a little bit off. Sorry, we'll get through it. It's just for this video. Today we are here to talk about Proto-Pasta. I talked a little bit about their filaments in the past, in particular their glitter filament, the Stardust HTPLA, and today I wanted to talk about their Matte Fiber HTPLAs. And the reason why I wanted to talk about those is because I've seen a lot of pictures of them online, and the layer lines look like they just about disappear, and I didn't really think that was possible, so I wanted to try it for myself. I also wanted to test out some different annealing techniques. Annealing is where you're going to heat treat the PLA to make it a higher temperature resistant PLA. And most of Proto-Pasta's filaments are in fact HTPLAs, and now they have a version 1, a version 2, and a version 3. Version 1 came out in their Kickstarter campaign 3.5 years ago. Then they came out with a version 2, and just last week or 2 weeks ago maybe, they released their version 3. I do have a spool of that I'm going to be testing out, and I'm super excited to play around with it. But today we're going to be talking about their matte HTPLA, and that is technically a version 2 of their HTPLA. However, it is completely different from the rest of their version 2s. And the reason why is because of the matte fibers that are inside of the filament itself. Now, just because there are fibers in it does not mean that it is abrasive. It is not abrasive to your nozzles. So if you have brass nozzles, you'll be okay with this. Proto-Pasta was nice enough to send me a bunch of these samples to play with, so I don't have a full spool to show you. However, I do have all 6 colors that it is available in. It's available in a blue, a green, a red, and a gray, a white, and a black. So each half kilogram spool is going to run you $39.99, and that's a little bit pricey compared to some other filaments out there. However, Proto-Pasta has been known to show that their quality is worth every penny. Each spool is going to be given on a cardboard spool, just like the rest of the Proto-Pasta filaments. This is actually kind of nice. You don't have to worry about drilling extra holes. You can actually just cut into the cardboard to place your the end of the filament when you're done with it into the cardboard itself. You don't have to worry about drilling holes, which is super, super convenient. So in terms of printability, the HTPLA printed really, really nicely at 215 degrees Celsius with a heated bed of 60 degrees. Now, that is my standard PLA temperatures. I usually start at 215, go up or down from there depending on whatever filament I'm using. The only color that I could not do that on was the white. With the white filament, I had to drop it down 10 degrees, and I printed that at 205 instead of 215. So how did I test these out? When I was going to the Midwest Rep Rap Festival, check up there for a video of the recap on that if you're interested. But when I was going to the festival, I wanted to create some sort of giveaway that I could give to anybody who came to my table, and I didn't want to do a maker coin. I wanted something a little more functional, so I decided to make my keychains. This is what they look like, and so I printed out a ton of these. I think I printed out a total of 150 of them, and about half of them were made out of the Proto-Pasta matte HTPLA. So I printed all of these at a 0.2 millimeter layer height, and they turned out fabulous. Did the layer lines disappear? Not quite, but they do look way less prominent than you would find on another plastic. So they all turned out fabulous. They all printed like butter. They went down smoothly, they printed easily, they stuck to the bed well. There were no issues with printing at all once I got the temperature right. And once I was done printing them, it was time to look at annealing them. If you do decide to anneal these, you have a couple of different options. Now, annealing, as I said earlier, is heat treating to raise the heat resistance of the PLA. And there's a couple of different ways to do this. The most commonly used is to bake it in the oven. And on Proto-Pasta's website, it says to bake it at 225 degrees, depending on the size of the piece, 5 to 10 minutes or sometimes longer. Now these are really small keychains, so I decided to bake them for 5 minutes, 7.5 minutes, and 10 minutes to see how that affected the print. At 5 minutes, they turned out great. At 7 minutes, they turned out pretty good. There was a tiny bit of warping on one of the pieces. At 10 minutes, both pieces warped. So that is something to keep in mind, that you might want to do a test piece to figure out how long you should in fact be annealing it for, because there's nothing worse than putting it in your oven and finding out that you totally ruined your piece. The other thing that I found is that most ovens fluctuate drastically in temperature, and this can cause a lot of difficulties in finding that 225-degree sweet spot. Now, on other websites that I have read, it talked about doing up to 212 or 210 degrees. Throw this into a pot of boiling water and have the same effect. So I decided to test this out again with an entire set of these keychains. And again, I got warping at 10 minutes. I got warping at 7 minutes this time in the boiling one. And I had very little to no warping at the 5-minute time period. So the matte HTPLA is much more hygroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture much more easily than a typical plastic might, which means you do have to make sure to keep it super dry before printing it, but also it means that if you decide to go the boiling route, it will absorb a ton of moisture, and that's exactly what happened with my pieces. They did dry out and they turned out fine, with one exception. Every single color, with the exception of white, faded from the boiling, whereas with the baking, that didn't happen at all. I have yet to test this out with a regular HTPLA to see if you have any color changing or issues with that. So I'm definitely going to play around with it a little bit more to test it out. But when it comes to the matte HTPLAs, I definitely do not recommend boiling them. It was easier on one end because you didn't have to worry about supports or drooping from some part not being supported right and falling. Make sure if your piece requires supports, you keep those supports on until after baking. That way you don't have to worry about a piece falling apart in the oven or drooping or warping or anything like that. So in the end, would I recommend the Matte Fiber HTPLA? Yeah, definitely. I kind of wish that they had more colors available. I mean, the green is probably my favorite. It is super, super pretty. I think that in terms of a PLA, this prints just as easily as any other PLA would, but it adds the added benefit of A, sanding down super easily and quickly, B, printing like a dream, and C, having your layer lines just about disappear. All of those things make for an awesome print, especially if you don't want to finish your piece. I will put links down in the description box below to Proto-Pasta's website in case you're interested in checking out the filaments that they do have. They do have plenty more other than their glitter filament and their HTPLA mattes. They do have a ton of aromatic filaments, which are also HTPLAs, and they also have some carbon fibers, some rustable irons, all sorts of other things as well. So if you're interested in some unique filaments, I will leave a link to them down in the description box below. Check them out for sure. So I hope you guys have found this video super useful or helpful in any way. If you have any comments, as always, leave them in the comments below and I will get to them as soon as I possibly can. I do read every single comment and try to respond to as many of them as I possibly can. A huge, huge thank you to all my patrons over at Patreon. I could not do videos like this without your support. You guys help keep my channel going, and if it wasn't for you, I don't know what I would do. You guys are awesome. That's really all I have for you guys today. I hope that you have a fabulous rest of your week, and I will see you guys again next time.